Hello, you found Why We Are Christians. My name is Kent Philpott, and we are talking to Desmond Wedderburn, and he is all the way on the other side of the country, back in the New York, New Jersey area. Welcome again, Desmond.
Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Now, you become a Christian
Yes,
in a very dramatic, kind of unusual way.
yes,
And now, then you found yourself homeless. Tell us
yes.
about that.
Okay, so after I had given my life to Jesus in the Virgin Islands of St. Croix, I heard from God to leave my business and to come back to America. And when I came back to America, now imagine I looked kind of crazy. I had hair, I had a beard, I was walking around with a staff. I really thought that I was Moses in the wilderness. And I looked really crazy, like John the Baptist or one of these guys, you know? And so I was very raw. I was very skinny from fasting. And I sold my furniture in my apartment in the Virgin Islands and got enough money to come back, a one-way ticket back to where my parents were living at the time in New Jersey. And so when I came back, I looked crazy to them. And I mean, I was that guy out in the parking lots preaching repentance for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. I had no training.
I've seen guys like you. I've seen,
I mean,
okay, I've seen that. There was a phase when, after a very dramatic conversion and complete change.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
So I was that guy, and I'm such a go-getter at times that I said, okay, I'm going to just try to get everybody to learn, everybody to repent. This is crazy what I'm just went through. But my parents, they were Presbyterians. So they're very conservative. They're extremely reserved. And here I am, I'm on fire, and I'm just blowing everything up. So we clashed so much, so it was a very uncomfortable situation. And so after when I first came back, it was very hard to stay with them because we clashed so much with our views. And so I would try to stay with other friends of mine, but no one really could accommodate me except one friend of mine, Darrell Klein from out of the Virgin Islands. He was getting married, so I stayed with him for about a week and was there in his house. But I basically, after that, had nowhere to stay, and I just started sleeping in the parks locally, and then it went from sleeping in the parks to begin to sleep on sidewalks in New York City. And so I was there sleeping on sidewalks for about 4 months, and it was during that time where now I have lost everything. And I mean, college educated, had my own business, had a great job working in a prison, and now I went through this experience with Jesus, and then I lost everything, and now I'm sleeping on the sidewalk, and I'm like, what is going on? So I felt so rejected, not really from anyone, but just a rejection that I'm in the situation. I felt so depressed that I decided that I'm just going to commit suicide. And I know it's bad theology, but I just figure if I leave my body, maybe I will see Jesus. And it was this bad thinking, this bad theology, but and because I felt so down and depressed, so one day I had begged for enough money to to try to kill myself. So I had enough money in my pocket, and I walked around and I begged for money, and I begged for money. And then I've never killed myself before, but I'm sure gonna try. And so I figure I'll just try to find some poison and drink my way out of this world. And literally, as I was walking down the block, and I was homeless for about 4 months, sleeping on sidewalks. I mean, homeless, the real deal, you know? And one day when I was walking on the street with the money that I had saved up to kill myself, and I said, that day is the day that I'm gonna end my life. This little girl walks up to me out of nowhere, and she stopped me, and as I was trying to go around her to kid, get out of my way. I'm trying to kill myself today. I'm trying to go around her. She matched my steps. So when I would go right, she would go right. It's almost like a dance move. Like I would try to go around her and she would stop me. And God knows how much I love children, especially little girls, because I grew up with two sisters, So I said, what is it? She said, Mister, I need money to buy some food and I need money to go home. And I was like, well, how much money do you need? And I kid you not, Bill, the money that she asked me was the exact change that I had in my pocket. And as I am taking the money out of my pocket to give to her, I heard God's voice in my heart said, I have a promise, I have a purpose for you. And then when the girl walked past me, when I looked behind me, she disappeared. I don't know where she went. And that's when I just believed that God had sent me an angel to stop me in the form of a child, because he knew that I would stop for a child. And so from that, I really began to hear God that I have a purpose. Following that, being homeless and trying to commit suicide, there was a pastor that I knew that I went to high school with his sons in our neighborhood. And so I went to his house. God said, go to Reverend Thompson's house. And he was a pastor, he was a Baptist pastor. And so I went to his house and I knocked on his door. And for 2 hours, I'm giving him my whole entire testimony. And then I tell him, I said, God is saying for you to baptize me. And can you imagine being a pastor and someone's knocking on your door, giving you scriptures, giving you the testimony, and say, you must baptize me, right? So he worked it out where I started to come to his Bible study for a few weeks, and then, went through the procedure of getting to understand, being in fellowship, and then he said, hey, we can really do this in another week and a half, another week or so. And so about 4 weeks I spent in Bible study and I knew the word so good, verbatim. And I mean, literally, it's only been a few months that I had this experience over in the Virgin Islands. And now, I said, well, what do I do? He said, when you come to the Sunday service like you've been doing, I'm gonna say, does anyone want to give their life to Jesus, or the doors of the church are open? And I said, that's the time when you walk up and we will publicly announce and stuff like that. Well, I tell you, I don't even remember what the message was about, what he preached. All I know, I was waiting for him to say, the doors of the church are open, or come on up. I was sitting in that seat in church. I was on fire. And as soon as he said, you can come up, I ran to the front and I was like, okay, let's do this. Imagine, this is a traditional Black Baptist church and I am running around like I'm a crazy guy, okay? And then—
Yeah, I've seen a few of you guys.
And then maybe a week later, I was baptized. And so that is how so it was great.
All right. Okay, now, you say here your pastor is 95 years old.
Oh.
Still going. What's his name?
John Thompson.
And it's the Union Baptist Church
in Bloomfield,
in
New
Bloomfield, New Jersey.
Yes.
I see your story here, and so you had quite a reaction from everybody. So and you say most of my family is more relaxed, conservative with my faith. He says I believe I'm more radical. So I would agree with that, Desmond. You're more radical. You went back to work again in the prison?
Yeah, so right after I got baptized, I heard the Lord told me to call my sister in South Florida and to hey, I feel I gave my life to God, and I really feel that He wanted me to come and hang out with you down in South Florida. Well, I got a one-way ticket to Florida. my pastor still covered me over everything. He became my spiritual father and my pastor. So wherever I went, he was always in touch with me, always, you know. And so when I went to South Florida, it was a place called Boca Raton. So Boca Raton is fabulous. So I came through the Fort Lauderdale airport, and my sister ran up to me and she gave me a hug. That is the first time, Phil, that I had a hug like that in months. And I cried because the only thing that she saw beyond the beard and all the hair was her brother. And then she took me back to where she lived. Come to find out, my sister, she was a general manager for a Marriott Residence Inn. So she lived in a hotel, right? So here I am. I go back to the hotel, and she showed me where I was living with her, and I looked and I said, oh, I have a bed. And I cried again. I said, I haven't had a bed in 4 or 5 months. And so I stayed with her for about a year. We lived together, and then while I was on the phone one day with a coworker upstate New York in the prison, just checking on the inmates, the director of the prison, he said, "Is that Officer Desmond?" And he was like, "Yeah." Well, does he want to work? Tell him to come back to New York. And that's how it happened. Okay. That I went back to New York. Now I went back to New York as a believer, went through the process of going through corrections. You know, it takes a while, it takes a few months. Once I was back in the prison now, I started working again as a believer. And my only inspiration was to get these inmates saved. Before, when I left, I wasn't a believer. But now I'm a believer in this radical guy who is just trying to do. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just getting so excited.
No. So Desmond, so you cut your hair.
Yeah, I cut my hair.
You shaved your beard. You shaved your beard.
Shaved it, yeah.
And you started to look like you were maybe even normal.
Yeah.
Now, you say here at one point, personal struggles you encountered, and you wrote down just these words, feeling that I have failed God.
Yeah.
Now, you went through a period of time like that.
Yeah.
We call that the dark night of the soul. The dark night of, and most Christians will.
Yeah.
I have too. Most Christians, somehow, it's not all smooth. Some people imagine the Christian life is just nothing but upward, but sometimes it goes like this. It's up and down.
Yeah. And I think that's also just me putting the burden on myself. I kind of grew up in my life, especially when I was a kid, with no real positive affirmations and stuff like that. And so I've always felt like I've always been a mistake. I've always felt like, until meeting God, of course, I always felt that my life is not worth anything. I was very, I didn't have self-worth within me at all. I didn't have any appreciation. And so so sometimes by default, I would go back and say, well, I'm at fault. It must have been something I have done. I have failed. And so with when you walk in with God, he didn't say it was going to be pretty. He didn't say it was going to be easy. There are going to be disappointments because when expectations have not been met. And there's a lot of times that I really felt that, man, God, I really wanted to do this for you, but it just didn't work out. And I'm questioning God, like, why? How come it didn't work? It must have been me, God. And so there's times when I have that reflection on myself that it must have been me. But then God says, hey, it's not about you. It's about what I've done. Focus on me, right? And so there's times, and even still now, I kind of still struggle with it every now and then. Not as much, but then God quickly brings me out of it and said, just continue to focus on me, and you be fine.
Wonderful, Desmond. Now, I want to talk about the ministries that you're doing now, and you're talking about the missionary work in Jamaica, Brooklyn, Africa. Talk to us about the ministry you're presently engaged in.
So after seminary, I graduated seminary in 2005 with a Master's Divinity degree in urban ministry. And God quickly told me, I want you to go right into the housing projects of Flatbush, Brooklyn, and begin to minister the gospel there. I had partnered with a guy, another pastor at the time, Dimas Celebarius, in the Bronx, in Bronx River Housing Projects. And God said, hang out with him for a while to understand how to do this type of ministry in the ghetto. And so after I've been there for about 6 to 8 months, I felt I was ready. And then God allowed me to begin to start a church right in the housing projects in Flatbush, Brooklyn. Was one of the worst housing projects in all of New York City. And I mean, it was just gangs. There were like animal sacrifices, voodoo, all kinds of stuff going on, shootouts daily. And so God allowed me to have an outreach there and to really begin a Bible study. And it really took off where I started to do house churches and do outreach ministries right on the streets. And so that's kind of what I do now. And since I've been there for 15 years now, pastoring in that community completely turned around now. And there's hardly been any crime. There's hardly been any shootouts or anything like that. And so God says he's going to turn this from a burial ground to holy ground, and exactly what he did. And so part of my ministry, I'm also a DJ that I DJ the gospel with pizza, and it looks like a Jesus block party, and it looks crazy. And I mean, and just to let you know, I have never DJ'd before. The Holy Spirit taught me how to buy the equipment, learn how to DJ, and I've always been a preacher, so I knew how to preach. And so it kind of, the street ministry is called Word for the Streets. It sounds like an urban graffiti way of saying it, cool way of saying it, but it's really Word for the Streets. And it's kind of like God said, I want you to give them the word on the streets. And the word is that Jesus is God. So isn't it cool that God allowed me to go through the process of being homeless for 4 or 5 months on the streets, losing everything, going through hardships, and he sends me right back into the ghetto to do street ministry. And the people that are being won, the people's souls that have been won by the street ministry and his house churches are the unchurched, the pimps, the prostitutes, the gangbangers, the young teens. I mean, it is crazy. So I get a population of the unchurched, the drunks, the homeless, that type of thing. And I did that for about 13 years. And then God transitioned me now to go to Jamaica, to go into Kingston, Jamaica, and do the same thing. Went into Kingston, Jamaica to a notorious...
Kingston, Jamaica.
So God allowed me to go back home to Jamaica. And he took me right into the hardest ghetto in Jamaica, a place called Tivoli Gardens, Tivoli Gardens. And if you Google that or YouTube it, you will be astonished. It is what they call the king of the ghettos. God allowed me to go there, meet some people. I was there for about 8 months, walking around the community. Nobody knew who I was, just praying and just believing God. And then God allowed me to do a 40 days fast with my prayer group. And I also have a prayer ministry. And then in the last 7 days, I was able to God wanted me to do a Jericho walk around 7 times, 7 days, and on the 7th day, walk around 7 times. And we did that. And would you believe, on the last time for me to walk around on the 7th time, someone actually came to kill me on that day. Well, one of the ladies told me. And so not everybody was welcoming me there. And so we were able to pray with people. And even this one person that I felt as though that was there to really do me harm, end up praying for him, and he began to cry. And he went back and he told all of the other gunmen that this pastor from Brooklyn is the real deal. And now all of us are best friends. and so God allowed me with 2 other ladies that gave their life to Jesus on that day of the prayer walk, the first day, to walk around the whole community. And then on the 7th day, when we did 7 times, we were able to walk now inside the community, and over 300 people gave their life to Jesus within a time frame of a month. And so
Wow.
it was great. And so revival broke out, and people were being delivered of demons, of all kind of spiritual and satanic things, all kind of mental and physical issues. Miracles were being were taking place. People were getting saved. The gospel was being preached. And even last year when I went back, over 150 people within that community gave their life to Jesus. So we're talking about 500 people that have given their life to God just in one territory where the enemy tried to stop me from going. Can you imagine? It is amazing.
They also say here, Nairobi, Kenya.
Nairobi, Kenya. I went there for about a month. I'm in partnership with also different organizations, and one of the organizations in New York City is called NYSEM, which is the acronym from New York School of Urban Ministry. And they get a whole bunch of church groups all year because they have an evangelistic school there. But they had gotten some pastors from Kenya, from Nairobi, Kenya, during a few years ago. And so what they would do, they would say, hey, we want some teams to go out to New York City and do evangelism, and we want you guys to go to Flatbush to be with Pastor Desmond. And so that's how I was able to meet this wonderful group of people from Kenya and Uganda. And we did an outreach on the sidewalk in Flatbush, and they were so amazed. They said, if you come to Nairobi, thousands of people lives will be won. And so years later, I was able to go into Kenya for about a month, went into the slums of Nairobi, and we preached the gospel. And a lot of people, they gave their life to Jesus, was able to pray with people. And then I also went to Uganda in Kampala and did the same thing. So yeah, from the streets of Flatbush, Brooklyn, to Kingston, Jamaica, to Nairobi, Kenya, and to Kampala, Uganda.
Wow, Desmond. There's a lady in our church, been with us for years, who's wonderful, from Kenya.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah,
wonderful people.
Huh? Wonderful.
Wonderful people.
Wonderful. Oh. What?
And they're always smiling.
Oh, terrific people. You're going to have to come and visit us. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, now we only got a little over 5 minutes. You said there's no topic that you're afraid to discuss. You're completely open to everything. You have house churches?
Yes. Have a house church in Jamaica, in New York City. It's not like a huge gathering. It's like 1 or 2 families. The whole vision is in the housing projects where I am, there's 59 buildings, and so we really want to have 59 house churches, 1 in each building, so they can evangelize each building. So it's not a whole lot, but it's.
So you're talking about your missions, the street outreach, house churches, 40 days prayer ministry.
Yeah.
Tell me. I got to give you 1 minute to tell me about the 40-day prayer ministry.
Okay, so it's called Battalion for Christ. We have a Facebook group, and we fast for 40 days, 4 times a year.
Wow. I would not make it in that ministry, Desmond. I would not make it. I'd be down to the McDonald's in about second day.
But so before you feel like God wants you to declare for 40 days, it could be food, it could not be food. So it's all a matter. But we get together every night on the prayer line for 40 days, and we pray for our communities, for our countries, for our continents, for our families, and stuff like that. We have worship on the prayer line. So for 40 days, yeah, we are like gospel gangsters for the kingdom.
You're too much, Desmond. Now, I got some poems here, and you have them divided. You just sent me a few samples.
Yes.
One is, here's poems before you were saved.
Yeah.
One is called I Remember Jamaica. Jamaica, man. Okay.
So you're using your patois now when you say man.
That's from a movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Let's have some rum, man, from Jamaica.
Man. Yeah, man.
And then there's a poem called Mother, about your mother.
Yeah.
And here's one called Crack Baby.
Yeah.
Crack
Yeah.
Baby. You say in the second section of it, I suddenly feel hot and cold at the same time. I am
Yeah.
twitching endlessly to the point of no return. I cry out for help, but cannot be heard. I feel sad, very sad, and never happy anymore. I am hungry, but not for food, trapped in an everlasting craving. I grow towards death rather than life. That's from Crack Baby, Before You Were Saved. Then here's well, two of them that I have, three of them, after you became a Christian. One's called I Will Not Be Silent. Boy, that's you. That's
Yeah.
you, Desmond.
Absolutely. Yes.
I will not be silent. You say there comes a time when we must speak out and not be silent. For we don't, the very rocks will cry out and never be quiet. Stand your ground, lift your voices, engage in battle, this holy riot. Profess His kingdom, His hope, His honor, and don't deny it. I love the poem. I won't be silent. Okay, now and then your last one I have here is a wonderful prize. Now the way we got in touch with you, you wanted us to publish your book of poems.
Yes.
And we probably discouraged you at first, but you didn't give up. And
No.
you talked to my wife, Katie, and she gave you some ideas. And so we're going to get that book
Yeah.
published. What's the name for the book that you want?
The name of the book is called Redeemed.
Oh, Redeemed.
Yes.
I have
Yes.
some of your artwork here on that. We're going to get that out. We're going to get that out in 2020. And
Yes.
don't worry, my wife will put you through all kinds of misery.
Oh yeah.
Bring it
All
on. That's my guy. Okay, bring it on. Okay, now, your favorite book in the Old Testament is Genesis. Genesis.
Yeah.
Mine too. I loved Genesis. Everything.
Yes.
So, okay, your favorite book in the New Testament is
Revelation.
Revelation. Not my favorite one.
Yes.
Not my favorite. But I like it. I preached through it a number of times. Desmond,
Yeah.
we've come to the end of this.
Oh.
It's over.
That's it.
It's we got 12 seconds left.
It can't be over. Come on.
Anyway, Desmond, it's been a very big pleasure, my dear brother. All
Yes.
right, guy. We'll get together sometime.
All right. Love you.
I
God
love
bless.
you too, Desmond. Bye-bye.
Okay. All
So
right,
the
take
end
care.
of the program, Why We're Christians, with Desmond Wedderburn. You got to get his book
Yay.
of poetry, Redeemed. So long.
Amen.